Hi, so today's video is another quick canter through my current tech setup. You may recall this kicked off earlier in the summer when I found a video on YouTube saying I had to make a cheap teleprompter from some simple components. Well, this is what remains of the teleprompter. It was stuck together with duct tape and it kind of disintegrated, but it proved the point that this would work. There were two main problems with it. The first, it was using an iPad for a display, and that was about a metre away from where I was sitting, so obviously it ended up being quite small. The second problem is that the glass was uncoated, and that meant I was seeing a double image, one from the front and one from the back side of the glass. So there was a kind of shadow or blurring, which made it hard to read text. So my next move was to use an old 19-inch monitor that I had kicking around, and I got a different picture frame with a larger piece of glass and got hold of some car window tinting film. So the hope was if I put this off, this would act like one-way mirror and I would be able to use it. But as you can see, there are quite a few bubbles that I wasn't able to get out, and also the whole thing isn't very reflected, it's quite blurry. So that idea was dead in the water. So there was really only one option, and that was to actually get hold of some real teleprompter glass. So I found a small company in London that scientifically coats glass, and they made me some teleprompter glass bespoke, relatively cheap, just over £100, and got it to me delivered into the car park of Tesco's in Milton near Cambridge over lockdown. All very cloak and dagger stuff, pretty cool. So if I flip over to this camera that's behind me here, I can show you what I'm seeing and I can talk you through the setup. So very quickly, there's the main screen for my computer display. There's my laptop. If I lean back, here is an Android tablet running something called Touch Portal, and I use that to control my Zoom calls. Down here, if I tap on here, we've got an iPad, and that's showing the output from the camera, which is behind there, and that allows me to adjust the focus or the exposure while the camera is running. But the main element of this beast is this, which is the teleprompter itself. So here is the 19-inch monitor sitting horizontally. Through there you can see the camera, and you just about see it, the front of the lens. And this whole case is just made out of wood. It's basically a picture frame hinged that I made myself, fairly straightforward. In front of this I've glued an Amazon Echo. I'm using this as a Bluetooth speaker so that people's Zoom call voices come from the direction of the screen rather than here, which is the direction of my laptop. And you can see the teleprompter glass, so that's being held at 45 degrees between the screen and the camera. Now the last problem that I had to solve was that the display itself is obviously a mirror image, so it's reflected left and right inverse. So it would have been nice if we'd been able to use the output from the Mac and just click an option and it would just flip it left and right, but Macs don't do that. Apparently it's possible on Windows with Ultramon, but I'm not running Windows. So the solution had to be using a Raspberry Pi, because no self-respecting project like this doesn't use Raspberry Pis. So here it is in this little case. It's just booting up now. It's not going to be very sharp on this camera, but you take my word for it, this is absolutely crystal clear and very legible. And when it gets to the end of the boot up process, which will be in a second, it'll kick over to a completely black screen. What's going on there is it's running an AirPlay implementation. So this is the protocol that Apple used to cast displays from their laptops onto Apple TVs, for instance. So I'm using the same setup here, or the same protocol here, just using this implementation I found on GitHub. So we come to the end of the boot up process now. The screen goes black, and then if I come over to my Mac, I can go to the AirPlay menu, select teleprompter, and after a second it flickers, and then I get my desktop on here. And just to prove the left-right inversion thing, I can drag a window from my main desktop onto there. If I move it right, it goes right. If I move it left, it goes left. So let's go back to the main camera setup. So essentially we've ticked all of the boxes. We've got a nice big display. I can put people's Zoom facial displays on here. Their eyes end up about 2/3 of the way up the screen, which is where this camera is, and so consequently when I'm looking at them, I'm also looking straight down the lens of the camera like I am now. So essentially what you're seeing here is what other people on Zoom calls to me end up seeing. Because the display is big and bright, it's no problem to sit and look at it for hours and hours every day, and essentially this is a pretty satisfactory setup for me at the moment. So Hopefully that's been useful. I know that one of the previous videos in this series has inspired somebody to set up their own teleprompter for doing this kind of thing. So if you have any questions about what I've done here, please drop me a comment or send me a message. I'll do my very best to help. But for now, that's it. My name's Gareth, and I will see you in the next video.